Welcome to the Journey of Self. This is your coach, Lehnaz Amjad. In this particular series, my intention is to assist you with awareness and knowledge so that you find clarity and direction if you happen to be going through a difficult time. The title of our today's session is What Can We Do About Things We Can't Control? In our session today, I would like to share with you an incident from my own life, along with some facts about our brain, and three things or three tips or techniques you could use when you find your life is slipping off and you find yourself not really in control of it. Friends, the way our mindset specifically and our thought process has a very important role to play, specifically when we go through crisis. Because the way we've been thinking about a particular problem, the meaning we attach to it, the kind of stress we take, and our response toward it, all of it stems from the way we have been handling issues since our childhood or young years. And this handling of difficult times, problems, hardships from our young years create neural pathways in our brain. So in present day today, as an adult, when you find yourself reeling under some crisis or going through a stressful situation, you will find that it's not very easy for you to switch your brain and immediately start thinking on a positive note. Why? Because our brain doesn't like discrepancy. We are hardwired to the way we've been thinking, attaching meanings, and approaching a problem in a certain way. We've been doing it. It's not necessarily whether it's right or wrong, but we've been doing it, which also include worrying from our young years. And since we've been doing that, this is a pattern our brain is now used to it. Now, if you really want to be in charge of your thought process and you don't really want to get into a deep stress and be more positive and optimistic, promoting your mental health, then we need to learn things which will help us design new neural pathways in our brain and develop an attitude or a mindset which will help us be more in control, specifically when we are going through a crisis and we find we can't really control things alone. So one example I'll share with you. This was many years ago when I was fairly young, in my early 20s. I suffered from a lot of anxiety, and I was so anxious, or perhaps I was going through a real bout of anxiety that day. I took off from my office a half day and I reached out to the doctor without appointment. I waited there for hours and hours only to meet the doctor for 5 minutes and seek a way out of what I was going through. But when the doctor suggested that there was actually nothing wrong, it's just that my anxiety has hit the roof, and I was actually catastrophizing, meaning when I could think of all the possible negative things that could happen to me, including I stopped by before reaching the doctor at a diagnostic center, and I entered and I just asked that guy to help me with a brain scan. So he asked me, do you have a prescription for it? And I said, no, but I want it. And he said, we just cannot do a brain scan of any kind unless you have a prescription suggested by a doctor, and also to understand what is it that you want it for. I was all the more annoyed because in my head, I was used to think a lot, evaluate a lot, and cook up stories for one negative thing, going all 9 yards, imagining the worst that could happen to me. And I was doing the same when I was in this given situation. in this given situation. So his answer annoyed me. And then when I visited the doctor, even his response further annoyed me. Well, it took some time for me to really heal. And that's another story, a very detailed one, which I'll talk in another sometime later. But what I really wanted to share with you through this piece of my life is my thinking at that point in time was absolutely running with the neural pathways that I had created in my head for a longest time. So I became a chronic worrier, not in one single day or a one single episode of anxiety. I became that because I got used to this habit of catastrophizing, of thinking the worst possible outcomes on one single negative thing. And I was in a dire need of help to really figure out what is it that I could do to stop thinking this way. This help came to me 10 years later, though, when I reached out to my coach and my therapist to really help me shift my mindset. So while I share this with you listening, to all my audiences, I would just say, if at all you are one of those who tend to catastrophize on one single negative thing, think about the worst possible outcomes, and then get into that worry mode and this vicious circle of stress or self-pity, I have 3 techniques for you, which you can use, which I didn't knew, and therefore I kind of suffered for a longest time. But these 3 simple tips and techniques can actually help you put some of your anxiety and rest. The first thing is challenge your thoughts, and to do so, you need to write them down. There is a neuroscience too when we write our thoughts on the paper. I don't recommend using a computer for it. Write with a pen for it. Write with a pen, pencil. It's your grammar and handwriting doesn't matter. Just write it down, because writing helps your prefrontal cortex, that's your front part of your brain, to connect with amygdala, the emotional part, and help you clarity, because you're putting the mess on the paper and you get a lot of clarity as to what is it that you're so bothered and annoyed or angry or helpless or stressed out about. So first tip is write it down. Even if you have not done it ever in your life, do it this time. You can go back and read that or maybe try to further evaluate it, but just write it down. This is one of the best first aid to a stressed mind. Next thing, seek support. Here I'm not saying that you should rush to a coach or a therapist to find help, but if at all you know of a friend, a relative, a parent, a mentor who you could reach out to get a perspective, speak up, reach out. Don't keep things to yourself and get further and further confused or think that you can solve it. Seek support. And if you have a coach, nothing like it. Reach out and get a perspective. Finally, this is another technique that I learned through my teacher while I was learning to journal and in another group. She's an expert in that. She taught me this. When we go through a very difficult time, or we are very confused or angry or literally distressed, one of the best ways is to write about it, yes, but also to write how do we want to feel towards the end of this whatever crisis we are going through. What we think and what we feel has a deep connection. And this is a pattern that our subconscious mind constantly captures from the life that we live and the external stimuli from the environment that we live in. So when you write, how do you want to feel about a particular thing? There's no magic here, but all answers are inside you, and you won't believe, you will be surprised to learn the answer that would come up. Write it down, keep it aside. Or just write the best possible outcome that you may want for this. You may not get 100% exact match to what you've written, but you would also not be stuck in a negative rut of worry or rumination. So the call to action for today is try these 3 things, these 3 techniques, and try to not really get into this deep stress mode, which is not good both for your mind and for your body. That's all for today. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.